I work nights for the sheriff's department in Bergen County. I've been on the force for 2 years. I haven't seen too much craziness, just the usual late-night drug arrests, a few robbery calls, and some assaults. Bergen County is pretty low crime. At least that's what I used to think. One night I got a call that made my skin crawl. A disturbance, a scream. It came from a house nearby. Now usually, a call like this meant a domestic dispute or maybe some drunk idiot yelling outside. But something about this one felt different. I arrived at the house and immediately felt uneasy. It was pitch dark, no lights on, no movement. I had to check the address twice. But then I saw it. A blue Toyota Sienna minivan parked in the driveway. Someone was home. I knocked. No answer. Then the neighbor came out. He looked pale, shaken. "I called you," he said, his voice trembling. I heard a scream, a bad one, like someone was being murdered. He pointed at the house. "She lives alone. Sometimes her boyfriend comes over, but I don't think he was here." That made it worse. I tried the doorknob. Locked. I circled the house, checking the windows. All locked. Except one. A backyard window. It was slid open, just enough for someone to climb through. I stopped breathing for a second. Every other window was shut tight, but this one, someone had come in. Or someone had left. I called for backup. Once I got confirmation, I climbed through the window and dropped into the dark kitchen. The house was silent. Too silent. I turned on every light I could find, moving from the kitchen to the living room. The air felt thick, heavy, like I was wading through something invisible but suffocating. "Police," I called out. "Hello? If you need help, say something." Silence. I swallowed hard. My gut told me something was very, very wrong. The first floor was clear. That meant I had to go upstairs. I didn't want to, but I had to. Before going up, I unlocked the front door for backup. Then, as quietly as I could, I started climbing the carpeted stairs. Halfway up, I stopped. I listened. Then from behind one of the doors, I heard it. A creak. Someone was up there. I flicked on the hallway light. 4 doors, all closed. I hesitated. Then I called out again. No response. I stepped forward. My boots barely made a sound on the carpet. I reached for the first doorknob and turned it. The door opened. It was a bedroom. The light was off, but the glow from the hallway was enough. My heart pounded. A woman lay in bed, her back turned toward me. The blanket covered her body. Something about the way she was lying there felt wrong. I stepped closer. The air smelled metallic, thick. Then I saw it. Dark stains, soaking through the blanket. Blood. I yanked the covers back. I felt my stomach drop. She had been stabbed over and over. Blood soaked her nightgown, her sheets. But she was still breathing. Barely. I grabbed my radio, my voice shaking. "Dispatch, I need EMS, now." Then I froze. The creak. I had heard it just moments ago, but this woman, she wasn't moving. She couldn't have made that sound. Someone else was here, and they were close. I spun around, scanning the room. My pulse thundered in my ears. There was only one place left to check. The closet. I drew my gun. My hand was slick with sweat as I reached for the knob. 5 seconds. I stood there, listening. Then I yanked the door open. Empty. I exhaled, but something still felt off. I turned back toward the bed, looked at the woman, at the blood, and then the bed. A wave of dread hit me so hard I almost staggered. I crouched, slowly. Then, gripping the bed skirt, I ripped it up. My heart stopped. 2 eyes, staring back at me. A man, crammed under the bed. A mask covered the lower half of his face. But his eyes were wide, Deranged. He didn't move. Neither did I. Then I found my voice. "Show me your hands," I screamed. He slowly raised them. My hands shook as I took a step back. "Get out. Now." He crawled out, moving slow, deliberate. I checked him for a weapon. No knife. But I wasn't stupid. He could have one hidden. "Don't move," I ordered. I wasn't about to cuff him alone. I called back up. "Get up here, now." My eyes never left him. Finally, I heard boots pounding up the stairs. Only then did I handcuff him. Minutes later, an ambulance arrived. The woman was rushed to the hospital. Miraculously, she survived. The man? Her boyfriend. Turns out she had cheated on him with his friend. When he found out, he called her. She broke up with him over the phone, and that was enough to make him snap. He had stabbed her 6 times, left her for dead, and then he hid, waiting, watching. For what? I don't know. I don't want to know. I'm just grateful she's alive. This story was told to me by my best friend's Uncle Daniel. He's a cop, works the night shift in our city. He doesn't scare easily. But this case? This one still haunts him. A year ago, Daniel and his partner Mark were out on their usual patrol. They'd been partners for years, both Army vets, calm, collected, the kind of guys you'd want responding to a crisis. That night, they got a call from a landlord at a small apartment complex. At first, it seemed routine, another tenant issue, another night. But when they arrived, something felt wrong. The entire apartment complex was outside. It was 1 or 2 in the morning, and every single tenant was standing on the lawn, whispering, shifting nervously. Their faces pale. The landlord ran up to them, frantic. "It's Adam," he stammered, pointing toward one of the apartments. "He's lost his damn mind. He turned on every faucet in his place. The sinks, the showers, the toilets. There's water everywhere." Daniel and Mark followed his gaze. The front door of Adam's unit was closed, but water was seeping out from underneath, a slow, creeping flood spreading across the concrete. "This has been going on for hours," the landlord said, shaking his head. Daniel and Mark exchanged glances. A welfare check. Simple enough. Or so they thought. They climbed the stairs to the second floor. Knocked. "Adam?" No answer. They pounded on the door harder. Still nothing. Water kept gushing from inside, spilling into the hallway. The floorboards were soaked. That's when they decided to break the door down. With a loud crack, the door swung open, and there, in the middle of the kitchen, stood Adam. The sinks were overflowing. Water spewed from the shower. A hose from outside had been dragged in, adding to the chaos. But Adam, he wasn't moving. He just stood there, shaking, his eyes wide, like he was listening to something, like he was afraid to even breathe. Daniel stepped forward. "Adam, what's going on? Are you hurt?" Adam didn't respond. He just kept shaking, staring at the walls. Mark moved toward the bathroom to turn off the water while Daniel cautiously approached Adam. Then, finally, Adam whispered something. "There are people in the walls." Daniel blinked. "What?" Adam's breath hitched, his lips trembled. "There are people in the walls," he repeated, voice rising. "There are people in the walls." Daniel frowned. Then Adam started screaming it, over and over, his voice breaking, hysteria taking over. Mark, still in the back, moved into the bedroom. He turned on the light. Something caught his eye. A thin, nearly invisible line running across the wall. At first, he thought it was a crack in the paint, but the more he stared, the more it looked deliberate. Like a door. Like a door someone had cut out of the wall and carefully sealed shut. A cold chill ran down his spine. Then he heard Adam's screams. Mark turned, heart pounding. "Daniel," he called, "you better come see this." Daniel left Adam and entered the bedroom. Mark stood frozen, gun raised, pointing at the wall. The line in the wall was clear now. A door, a hidden space. Daniel swallowed hard. Adam was sobbing now, his voice broken. "They're in the walls, they're in the walls, they're in the walls." Daniel and Mark locked eyes. Then, in one swift motion, Mark grabbed a loose piece of the drywall and pulled. The panel popped off, and behind it, 3 sets of eyes stared back. Crammed together in the tight, dark space, 3 people. 2 men and a woman, huddled inside the hidden compartment. Their faces were painted in strange, unsettling patterns. Daniel's breath hitched. Mark took a step back, his grip tightening on his gun. "Come out," he ordered, voice sharp. The figures in the wall didn't move. Then slowly, they began to crawl out. Their limbs unfolded in unnatural ways, their movements jerky. Their eyes never blinked. Daniel and Mark ordered them to the ground, handcuffed them. By the time backup arrived, Adam was still shaking in the kitchen, staring at nothing. It was only later, after the 3 were taken to jail, that the real horror came to light. They were part of a cult, a small, hidden group that lived deep in the woods outside of town. They had targeted Adam. They knew he had a history of mental instability. They had been living inside his walls, whispering to him, watching him. They wanted him to join them. Adam had turned on all the water to try and drive them out. He wasn't crazy. He was terrified. Daniel and Mark still talk about that case. It still haunts them. Because sometimes, late at night, they wonder, how long had those people been inside his walls before anyone noticed? And worse, how many others have they done this to? One night, during a grueling 12-hour overnight shift, I got a call. A suspicious person was going house to house, knocking on doors, mumbling things, sometimes speaking directly into doorbell cameras. When I arrived at the house of the man who reported it, he looked shaken. He explained in a hushed, uneasy voice that it was a middle-aged woman with long, wiry hair. She was holding something behind her back, going from door to door, yelling at people to open up. And she was talking to herself. The man had a Ring doorbell camera, and he pulled up the footage for me. The screen flickered. Then, there she was. She stepped up to the door, stopping inches from the camera lens. She stood there, staring. Minutes passed. She didn't move. Then, her thin, bony hand reached out. She pressed the button. A second later, the homeowner's voice came through the speaker, cautious but firm. "Who are you? What do you want?" She tilted her head slightly, instead her lips curling into a grin. "Open the door." The man hesitated. "Why?" "I need blood." Then she laughed, a sick, raspy cackle that sent chills down my spine. The homeowner, now clearly disturbed, threatened to call the police. That's when she snapped. She lunged at the door, slamming her fists against it over and over, her nails scratching at the wood. Then she grabbed the doorbell camera, her fingers curling around it, trying to rip it off the wall. And then she stopped. She backed away slowly. Her empty eyes never broke contact with the lens. Then without a word, she turned and went to the house next door. That's when the man finally called 911. We had multiple units searching the area now, a mini manhunt. The description we had, possibly armed, dangerous. I checked a few nearby houses on foot, then got back in my car to patrol the area. But we couldn't find her. And then, another call, a breaking and entering, a 911 call. The voice on the other end was whispering, panicked. Someone just walked into my house. She has a weapon. I'm hiding upstairs. The caller also had a doorbell camera. They saw her enter. But before stepping inside, she looked up at the camera and smiled. I arrived at the house at the same time as another unit. The front door was unlocked. We pushed it open, weapons drawn. Inside was silent. We moved carefully, scanning each room, each hallway. Then, a scream. Upstairs. We bolted up the staircase, following the desperate cries. As we reached the master bedroom, the door cracked open. A terrified husband and wife sat trembling inside. She was here, the husband stammered, scratching at the door, clawing at it, but his voice broke. She never left. They never heard her go downstairs. That meant she was still inside. We had to clear the upstairs, room by room. Then, from the last darkened bedroom, a sound, a low, wheezing cackle. We turned the corner, weapons raised. The room was pitch black. I flipped the light switch. She was there, sitting on the bed, staring at us, smiling. In her hand, a massive knife. The bed beneath her was soaked in blood. Not anyone else's. Hers. She had cut her own wrist, her lips curled into a slow, trembling grin. She whispered, "I need blood." And then we saw it. Sitting between her legs, a little doll, a child's doll, covered in her blood. We aimed our guns, dropped the knife. She just giggled, kept rocking back and forth, kept muttering to herself. I tried talking to her, reasoning with her. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. "Who are you talking about?" Her vacant eyes locked onto mine. Then she lunged. A feral growl tore from her throat as she sprang from the bed, knife raised. I reacted instantly. I fired twice. Both shots hit her arm. She screamed, dropping the knife, clutching her wound. We tackled her, restrained her, cuffed her wrists. She kept laughing, kept saying it, over and over. "I need blood." "She needs blood." We rushed her to the hospital. From there, she was transferred to jail. But later, she was found not guilty by reason of insanity. She's now locked away in a mental asylum. The horror of that night still lingers. The people in that neighborhood, terrified to open their doors, knowing a deranged woman was lurking outside. The couple upstairs, seconds away from becoming her victims. And me, standing face to face with something that didn't feel entirely human. The scariest experience in my 10 years as a police officer.